انظرونا نقتبس من نوركم قيل ارجعوا وراءكم فالتمسوا نورا وضرب بينهم بسور له باب باطنه فيه الرحمة وظاهره من قبله العذاب ينادونهم ما لم نكن معكم قالوا بلى ولكنكم فتنتم أنفسكم وتربصتم وارتبتم وغرتكم الأماني حتى جاء أمر الله وغركم بالله الغرور فاليوم لا يؤخذ منكم فدية ولا من الذين كفروا مأواكم النار هي مولاكم وبئس المصير. صدق الله العلي العظيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتلها. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. قال الله العظيم في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن إن بعض الظن إثم. O you who believe, avoid most of suspicion, for surely suspicion in some cases is a sin. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. And that's our discussion tonight. Dhan. If I look at what is dhan, if I was to see what is the dictionary meaning of dhan, one says al-husban, iftirad or ra'i, which is something believed to be true, a view, a belief, an opinion, an idea, a supposition, a thinking, a thought of someone, or an assumption. In another one, it says adhan is shak. It's uncertainty of mind or of feelings. The feeling of thought of a person who suspects, misgiving, mistrust, distrust, doubt, dubiosity, suspicion, uncertainty, dubiety. Okay, this is the dictionary meaning. Just to give you an idea of what the dictionary meaning. But what is dhan? What is dhan, if we want to look at it? What is it? If we say dhannet b'shay, it's basically a projection that we make that has no basis or proof. When I say no basis, there's no foundation or evidence that I'm working on. And this is why it's seen negatively. Because someone's assuming something, but they have nothing solid to go with. And that's why when Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran, He says, وَإِن تُطِعْ أَكْثَرَ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ يُضِلُّوكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. If you are to obey most of those upon the earth, they will mislead you away from Allah. Why? He says, إِن يَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا الظَّنَّ وَإِنْهُمْ إِلَّا يَخْرُصُونَ. Why? Because most people follow dhan. They follow this form of assumption. And he says, they are not, but the word that's used is يَخْرُصُونَ. In other words, what's يَخْرُصُونَ firstly? Let's take a look firstly, what the verse is saying, that these people do not follow evidence. They are just speculating. So if you want to get an example of that, look at the stock forecasters. Those that forecast the stock market, they just speculate. And the stock market goes up and down based on their speculations. But there's no foundation to what they're doing. And this is known. Even when you take a look at modern day scientists, if you look at scientists previously, scientists like Einstein, Newton, and others like them, there was foundation to what they used to do. Now you've got these new age scientists, they'll come up with the multiverse theory and things like that. It's all speculative. It's not something that's structured. It's not something that I'm based on evidence. They just hypothesize. This could be the case. This is wrong, and God uses the word inhum illa, the word that's used inhum illa yakhrusun. What does it mean when I say someone yakhrus? It's not yakhrus with a sin, with a sad. Yakhrus meaning with a sin, yakhrus, someone that is muted. But yakhrus here, the best example I could find is, you know, we used to go to the fetes at school, you know, the fetes, and they'd have the jelly bean jar. And you would guesstimate how many jelly beans are in the jar. That's what yakhrusun means. So you look at it, another word we use in Arabic is yikhamman. Yikhamman, you ask them, how much money do you have? They'll say, yeah, a couple of $100,000. It's not anything that's founded on anything. It's just like, that's what I think that's worth. Or, you know, when they're about to put something up in an auction, that's what they do. They do takhmeen. They say this is could fetch around this price. But it's nothing that's solid, and this is what we talk. And that word is what? That's what they call an appraisal. You know, when you're appraising something. That's also a form of this word. So there's no foundation to what is being said. And that's why Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَمَا يَتَّبِعُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ إِلَّا ظَنَّهُ إِنَّ الظَّنَّ لَا يُغْنِي مِنَ الْحَقِّ شَيْئًا. That most of them do not follow except assumption. إِنَّ الظَّنَّ, indeed assumption, avails not against the truth at all. What does Allah mean by the truth? The truth is your predisposition, your innateness, what's intrinsic, what's within you, the bias that you were created upon. That's haqq. This is the truth. So when someone wants to challenge what is innate, what is within me, they have to have something that's solid. But God says these people use assumption. They come in and say, what if? Let's suppose this. Let's suppose that. They give you these presuppositions or whatever. They give you these things that they've put forward that have no foundation at all. They just say, what if? And people follow them and they veer from the truth. Now, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Said in a hadith, إنما أقضي بينكم بالبينات والأيمان. That when I judge between you, this is a very important hadith. It is so important, this hadith. I've read a lot of hadith and I said this is important, but sometimes you read a hadith, you said this has importance, but this hadith has a lot of weight. Why? And I'll explain why. The Prophet says, I judge using bayinat, which means evidence, proofs, ayman, which means oaths. So when I make a judgment between two people, I base my judgment on two things, on evidence and on an oath. Why does it say evidence and oath? Because sometimes when you bring in two people the problem, they produce what the evidence is, and sometimes if the evidence is inadequate, then we go on the oaths. Someone says, Wallah, I swear by Allah, Wallahi that I did not steal this, or Wallah, we go with the oath. And he says, and based on this I will judge. Now, does that mean the Prophet doesn't have access to the unseen and the unknown? Alim al-Ghaib, he has. But he says, I don't use this. The Prophet's telling you, I don't use this. I work on what I see. Because this is how God works. In the dunya, he works with you. In the akhirah is where everything becomes apparent. That's why if someone comes up and says the shahadatain, they say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. They have the right of a Muslim. They are treated like a Muslim. They have entered the brotherhood. On the day of judgment, then God tests what their intentions really are. Your job is to work with what is apparent. The hadith here, the Prophet saying, I know the unseen. The Quran says, وَلَا يُظْهِرُ عَلَىٰ غَيْبِهِ أَحَدًا إِلَّا لِمَنْ ارْتَضَى مِنْ رَسُولٍ. That Allah Azza wa Jal says that the Prophet has access to the unseen, yet with judgment does not use this. He works with what is apparent. In fact, if you read this hadith, it baffles you. He says, even if I'm to make a judgment, this book, this is in Al-Kafi and many other sources. It's not a weak tradition, it's a strong tradition. If I am to make a decision that is wrong, he says, but there's no evidence of him ever doing that. But what he's trying to say, and you know and that you are stealing or cheating based on the way you've bought in. So in other words, if a courtroom rules for you, and you know you're in the wrong, the haqq is not yours. You're taking it, you have eaten something that's unlawful, or taken something that's unlawful. So in other words, everything with little evidence or no evidence is of little or no value. This is one of the biggest issues we've had with idolaters, people that worship idols. They make the idol. They design the idol. They do the system with the idol, and they say, we've done this. When you go up to an idol worshipper, they say, we don't worship this idol, but we use it as a means to gain closeness or nearness or proximity to God. That's their excuse that they bring. People do this with people. People worship people. People worship groups for sentimental reasons. They go, you know what, I feel good about this person. You know, this person, he did the paving in my house. Good bloke. People are like that. They just get excited over something someone did for them. You know, this person's been paying. You get people like one guy goes, I remember I was talking to a man, he said to me, I love the Australian government. They gave me a housing commission. And I said, all right. You know, so if someone gave you a house, that you'd love them immediately for that, and you place them in, because he was trying to say how just the government is. I said, the government does good things, but it isn't just. There's no one around that's just. They do good things here and there, but they don't have justice in the sense, because you are entitled to more than this. You just don't know because you're not in the upper class yet. So anyway, so what is wrong with what idol worshippers do? It's what they've decided. Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran, in hiya illa asma', this is from Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam, سميتموها أنتم وآباؤكم ما أنزل الله بها من سلطان. That these things you worship are things that you have named, their names that you have named, you and your forefathers, they do not have authority. Why does he say this? Because when you pray towards the Kaaba is a stone, isn't it? It's not really a cube, it's a rectangular prism, okay, that you pray towards, and you're praying that direction. Allah has given authority for you to pray towards the Kaaba. The Kaaba was built from Jabal Abi Qubais. Jabal Abi Qubais does not have the same authority as the Kaaba. It's just like, you know, when you go to visit the shrine of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam in Al-Madinah Al-Munawwara, and the henchmen that stand around the shrine will tell you, this is hadith, this is made from iron, you know, do not touch it, you know, you're doing shirk by doing so. Yes, if I want to touch metal and worship metal, this is shirk. But this isn't metal or iron. This is what surrounds the Prophet. Just like when I pick up the Quran and I kiss the leather or the plastic or the cardboard cover, I'm not kissing cardboard, leather or plastic. I'm kissing what's within this cover. This is what I'm there for. It has this representation. This is the shrine of Rasulullah. This is the grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. So, in other words, when I want to, this is a bit of an introduction for dhan, I should not rely on anything without evidence. And it has to be evidence that is strong enough. How strong should the evidence be? Strong enough for me to reproduce on the Day of Judgment. So when God says, why did you do this? You say, well, here are the facts. Not my cousin's best friend's drug dealer told me. You know, that's what people do. They follow dhan, they follow the assumption and opinion of someone they don't even know. That's it. They hear something and they'll just go with it and they run. You can't just run with the grapevine. You can't. You do that, you end up in a million problems. All right. Here we come to our first question. That was introduction. Should I have a good opinion of people? Should I have a good opinion of people in general? I'll break up people into three groups. The first group are the good. I won't say the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know? It's not going to be a spaghetti western. So we'll start with the good. The good are the people that have religion. When I say they have religion, they are honest, they are trustworthy, they have Islamic values. These types of people, you can always trust and rely on these people. Because when you mention God around them, they stop if they're doing something that's not right. These are people you should enter trade with, you should enter marriage with, you should socialize with. Everything should be done with these types of people because these people give you comfort. So that's the first group of people. Always have a good opinion of them. The second group of people are the bad. The third's not the ugly. Relax. The bad are the people that look like humans but have characteristics of beasts. They appear as human beings, but they have no religion. They have no means or ways. Everything's an opportunity to them. Everybody looks like a mark to them, someone they want to make $1 out of. They have no limitations. The only limitations are the law, fear of going to jail, or the people and being exposed. That's their limitations. But if they can do it and get away with it, they will. These types of people, avoid them because they will give you hardship in life. Don't be deceived by the cut of their jib. Don't, by the way they look at it. Don't be deceived by the gift of their gab, the way that they talk. Because Allah Azza wa Jalla, He speaks about the hypocrites in the Quran. He says when they speak, you will listen to what they say. He says, and you look at them, you like the way that they appear. And that's why we're con artists. They're people that give you confidence. That's how you feel when you're around them. So these people that don't have religion, bad people, expect the worst from them. So the first people, you have a good opinion. The second, you don't. The third are the unknown. Depends on the era, and it depends on the place, and it depends on the person. Let's begin with the unknown Muslim. How do I deal with a Muslim that I do not know? Generally, when you meet a believer, always assume the best from a believer. You meet a believer, assume the best. And if someone comes in and attends a majlis, weeps over Imam Hussein alayhi salam, involves themselves in the ceremony, involves themselves in the congregation, I know this is a good act, I should always have a good opinion. This is the precept. If I don't have this good assumption of them, then I'm automatically going to assume these actions aren't good actions. I'm going to have that feeling. If I start having sultan, thinking bad about everyone, eventually I won't come to the center anymore. You know, you meet those people, you know, the negatrons in society. He's, oh, I hate every center, everyone's chasing money, everyone. You meet those people. I'm not going anywhere, I'm not doing this, but he doesn't say that about the RSL clubs he slaps the pokies at. He doesn't say that about the nightclubs he dances at the podium. They're all mu'mineen or salihin. He goes there, they're all good. When it comes to centers, they're all vile and they're wicked. So the default of a human being in general, is it good or bad? Not a Muslim. A human in general, is it good or bad? The default. Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ قَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Allah says we have honored who? Bani Adam. Who's Bani Adam? The children of Adam. Is he talking about the Muslims? He's talking about every child of Adam. The human is honorable to begin with. He says, وَحَمَلْنَاهُمْ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ. We carried them in the land and the sea. وَرَزَقْنَاهُمْ مِنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ. And we did what? We gave them of the good things. Allah gave us sustenance of the good things. And then he says, وَفَضَّلْنَاهُمْ عَلَى كَثِيرٍ مِمَّا خَلَقْنَا تَفْضِيلًا. وَفَضَّلْنَاهُمْ. We gave them excellence. We gave them distinction over the majority of our creation. Because tafdila means Allah is emphasizing this. Allah is reiterating this. So the human being in general is dignified. So imagine if this human submits to God. His dignity increases. Imagine this human submits to Muhammad ibn Abdullah as his messenger. Then imagine if this human has wilayah of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Noorun ala noorun ala noor. That deserves a salawat. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala. Light upon light upon light. We are generally humans. We are social. We deal with all walks of life. All walks of life. Others, we deal with everything. We avoid where we feel there's a question mark here. We see a dark alley, we keep walking. You know, have these feelings. Something doesn't feel right, walk away. You know, go with your gut. And a lot of things you follow your gut feeling. Okay? This is normal. For example, I remember once at the center, people come here, nothing ever goes wrong. On a Laylatul Qadr, someone had their shoes stolen. He asked me afterwards, he said, how did my shoes get stolen at an Islamic center? I said, well, these nights, you get a lot of randoms turned up. And you could probably point out who it was. A lot of randoms turn up, people with priors, they just turn up on those nights. And they're the ones that usually do this. The rest that turn up to an Islamic center generally aren't people that pick up shoes and walk off with them. You know what I mean? So this is when he asked how, because generally if I come to an Islamic center, I expect what? I expect the best, because there are people that are here to worship. Any other night, it wouldn't have really happened. I don't want someone to go take shoes right now to make an example. What happens, or when do we not have a good opinion? Well, is there a point where I shouldn't have a good opinion of people? There is a point. Imam Musa ibn Ja'far al-Qadhim salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi says in a narration, إذا كان الجور أغلب من الحق لم يحل لأحد أن يظن بأحد خيرا حتى يعرف ذلك من. The Imam says when injustice becomes prevalent over what? Over good. It is not permitted for anyone to entertain even a good thought of someone else until it is known that they are good. In other words, I should be completely with a bad opinion of others if we are in a time of injustice. Now, how do I determine what injustice is? People say, oh, you know, the conspiracy theorists go, yep, it's now. He says that while he's holidaying in Bora Bora, he's living the best life, but it's injustice now. No. Injustice is when you're living under a tyrant's rule. Imagine you're in Iraq and you're living under the rule of Saddam. One person I worked with once, he was a soldier. He was an Assyrian. He was a soldier at the time of Saddam. He said, I lived for 10 years while I was in Iraq. I was a soldier. I would sleep next to my wife. I would not talk about anything except how was school for the kids and how the weather was. Because the whole time I didn't know if she was working for the government and she didn't know if I was working for the government. So we could have both been spies. Imagine you're sleeping next to someone that's potentially a spy. That's what the Imam's talking about. That's Zaman al-Jawr. This is the Zaman of tyranny. The Zaman, or the time of despotism. The time of injustice. Not now people start whinging, oh, there's so much injustice now. Really? Do you know if we were living in Zaman al-Jawr now, injustice, why do you send your kids to school? If it's that bad, why do you send your kids to school? If there was that much injustice, I'd lock my kids at home. But we sent them with so much confidence. So it depends on the time and it depends on the people. If good prevails, you have a good opinion. If bad prevails, then you have a bad opinion. But in either case, you don't go extreme. You're always wary of the situation that you are in. Even in the Bible, if you read right at the beginning, if you read in the book of Genesis, when it talks about Abraham and God, at that time he's still called Abraham, hasn't been called Abraham. He goes to a city called City of Gerar. And then it's mentioned in the Bible, he says to him, when Abraham calls Sarah, he says, she is my sister. When the king questions him as to why he lied, he says, because he did taqiyya is even in the Bible here. He says, because I thought surely the fear of God is not in this place and they will slay me for my wife's sake. So in other words, he said, I acted in the way that I did because I did not see the fear of God in this place. So you act according to the situation. And people sometimes are preset on saying bad news, on complaining. Look at the news and the media and movies and TV shows. They'll show you the bad things in life. Why? Because people want to watch them, entertainment. Could you imagine you actually watch a TV show about a real family and their real life? No one will watch it. You want something weird to happen. You want, a bunch of aliens to come and kidnap them and probe them and do whatever they do, whatever people enjoy these days. That's what people want. They want to see these things, or otherwise they won't be watched. I remember once I was watching a lecture for Allah yarhamu, Sheikh Ahmad al-Wa'ili, and in his lecture, he said there are some people, a poet once wrote this poem, and he actually says it's a very negative way of looking at things. He says, رأيت الناس خداعا إلى جانب خداعي يعيشون مع الذئب ويبكون مع الراعي. Which means I saw people, the poem says, I saw people, he said, one deceiver alongside another deceiver. They live with the wolf, but they cry with the shepherd. In other words, there are people, they're like that. They think everyone's a criminal. Everyone's corrupt. Everyone has it in for them. If I remain like this, what will happen to me? If I have an opinion everyone's bad, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam says, Man lam yahsun dhannuhu istawhasha min kulli ahad. Alaykum salam. Whoever doesn't have a good opinion of people here, what will happen? He'll remain lonely. They will alienate themselves from everybody. You just leave everybody. If you start thinking everyone's evil, everyone's bad, what are you going to do eventually? You're going to stay alone and be away from people. How do I use this scale? What's the best way? You want to use the best scale? I'll tell you what the scale is. If you want to look at the virtue of an action, look at the action in practice. If you want to see the vice of an action, look at the action in practice. For example, someone says, I want to steal. You tell them, how would you like if someone stole from you? Automatically they say, I wouldn't like that. The action is vicious, they won't like it. You say, I want to give someone a gift. And then someone will say, how would you like if someone gave a gift to you? That'd be awesome. Then do it. So everything I begin by applying it to myself. Let me look at me. Me, myself. Who am I? Okay. Should I have a good opinion of people or not? Me. Should I be in doubt of people's intentions with their actions or not? Look at me. When I do an action, me, Mohammed Mehdi, I'm not talking about you people, myself. When I do an action, sometimes my intention is what? Sometimes your intention is what? Reputation. I'm talking about myself. I'm not talking about you. You know yourself, I know myself. Sometimes I might do it for reputation. If I do this good action, if I pick up this piece of garbage, people watch me, people say, this is a good bloke. I do it for reputation. Sometimes I'll do something that's purely for God. I do something when no one watches me. In the middle of the night when no one even knows, not a single person will know, I do it wholly for God. Sometimes I do an action that's what? It's cluttered. It has some goodness in my intention, sometimes it's mixed. When I look at it this way, then I start to look at people in the same way. I start saying, well, can I say someone's doing something for reputation? No. I always assume, because I want people to assume that I'm doing it for God, I assume he's doing it for God. Hala, can I say it's common for this region to be like this? I mentioned this in a lecture before. You know, it's common for these types of people to do this. Yeah, I can. If it's known, if it's something that everyone knows, it's not something people don't know. It's common. These types of people, they're openly about it. Our region, we're all stingy. We don't spend. You know, like people will say, hold on, you know how a copper wire was made? It was two of these types of people, I don't want to say the race, fighting over a nickel. You know, they kept pulling on it, stretched it, and became a copper wire. This is what sometimes is the way things come about. Now, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullahi wa salamu alayh, says, الشرير لا يظن بأحد خيرا لأنه لا يراه إلا بطبع نفسه. The evil person doesn't see good in anybody. Why? Because he sees people like he sees himself. You know? Everyone he sees, thinks of them with the worst intentions. Why? Because he has the worst intentions. When he does something, he's got the worst intentions. So he thinks everyone has evil intentions. You know, if you say people that do this, they do riyah. People that pray, jama'ah, they're doing it riyah. They're doing it to show off. That's because you pray to show off. So you think everyone prays to show off. Or you hear people, they say people that follow this marja are foreign agents. That's because you are a foreign agent and you think everyone else becomes a foreign agent. You need certainty to have an opinion. I can't just have an opinion without what? Certainty. Not I assume, I am certain that this is the case. I cannot just have this. I can't be having an opinion that's based on something loose. I shouldn't think, I should be on guard. Have good opinion on people, but be on guard in case there is a hidden agenda somewhere. Let's look at a story that happened in Islamic history. Story you probably hear. One of the surah in the Quran, Surah Al-Hujurat, talks about dealings between people. If you read through that surah. One of the narrations that we know that's mentioned about this story is about a man called Al-Walid ibn Uqba or Aqaba, who the Prophet sends to a qawm, a nation of people or group of people. And the Prophet sends him. This man has a previous enmity with these people. Because don't forget, there's tribes. So there's previous hatreds. Certain tribes hate different tribes, but they say adversity makes strange bedfellows. When Islam came in and there was changes, enemy clans came together and everyone became one. Like if you take a look at Malcolm X, a very good example. He said, when I went to the Hajj, what did he say? What made Malcolm X? Well, Malcolm X previously was what? He was racist. He previously hated white people, just hated them. But when he went to Hajj, he said, I saw black, white, Asian, they're all next to each other. They all dealt with each other, and that was all gone. We're all one. When you go to Hajj, you actually see the nation of Islam together. The Muslims, not the nation of Islam, not Louis Farrakhan one. I'm talking about the nation of Islam. You see it as one in the Hajj. So Walid ibn Aqba here, this other clan he knew that they had enmity towards him. So he went with this task from the Prophet. Upon arriving, they knew he was coming from the Prophet, so they all came in a big, because you imagine someone's been sent by the Messenger of God, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. You give them a proper greeting. So when they came out and he saw them coming out, he thought they had come out to what? Enact something bad on him based on the previous relationship. So he returned. Rather than return and say, look, I felt scared, he said, I'm not going to make the situation look like I'm the loser. I'm not going to make myself look out bad. He turned around and said, irtaddu, that these people have become apostates. They've turned against religion. And he came and told the Prophet that these people have turned against religion. Hala, one thing we'll learn from this is every bad opinion has some origin to it. And when someone has sultan, there's a reason behind it. This is what we're talking about. You've got to be deranged if you just have a bad opinion of people in general. There's something that takes place that you see. For example, you might see someone pulling faces in a mirror and you think, all right, something's wrong with this person. There has to be an origin for you to have sultan. So, rather than react and assume the best, because a believer should assume the best in everything, even when a remark is made. When someone makes a remark, I should always assume the best. You know, you always look for, remember we always take 70 excuses, give a believer 70 excuses. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam says, اطلب لأخيك عذرا فإن لم تجد له عذرا فالتمس له عذرا. In other words, make an excuse for your fellow brother. Make an excuse for them. When someone's not around, someone's didn't turn up or something that happened, make an excuse. He says, if you do not, or you can't make an excuse, he goes, create one. Create an excuse in you just to make them look good. Because they're preset generally of being good. You know, if someone regularly turns up on time, regularly does things right, regularly does all this, give them a good excuse. But someone that never does anything right, and they just don't care about people, they don't care about people's times, they're different. We're talking about someone that is a good person, have a good excuse for them, because we're talking about believers. He is saying your brother. So when Walid said to the Prophet that these people have become apostates, the Prophet didn't say, all right, these people are evil, whatever, let's wage war. That's what they do now. Now, Allahu Akbar, they grab their ISIS flags and they head off to start burning people and slitting their throats. Let's just head in the direction and start slaughtering. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam sent another companion to go see these people. This other companion turned up. It was a time of prayer, and he heard the adhan and saw them come to the masjid to pray in congregation. He says to Rasulullah, it's not what was told to you. These people are believers. So Allah exposes Al-Walid, and he brings out the verse, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu in ja'akum fasiqun binaba'in fatabayyanu an tusiba qawman bijahalatin fatusbihu ala ma fa'altum nadimin. So he says the word that's used here, a fasiq. Why? If a fasiq comes with news to you, he says, make sure it's true. Why doesn't God say if anyone comes with a report? Because a adil, a just person, is different to a fasiq. What's the difference? A adil is someone that prays, fasts, does what's obligatory, doesn't commit greater sins. A fasiq is an evildoer. A fasiq, a fasiq is someone that's an alcoholic. A fasiq is someone that's a thief. A fasiq is someone that's a drug dealer. A fasiq is someone that's a predator. And I don't mean the guy in Schwarzenegger's movie. I mean the other predators. These are the people that we consider to be evildoers. And when these people tell you something, know that you need to investigate this. Do I have to investigate? No. Investigate if you're going to do something about it. But not every time someone tells you a report, go investigate. No. If I want to act upon this, say for example, I'm going into business with somebody and a fasiq comes up and an evildoer says, this person's bad. Because I'm going into business, let me see what this report is. But if a just person tells me, because a righteous person, this is, they're not normal. Righteous people are a very small percentage. Why? Because a righteous person won't come up to you and tell you, listen, this guy is bad. And you say, why? He said, I read something about him in the Daily Mail. You know, they don't read a tabloid and act on it. A righteous person knows. He has insight and intel with what's going on, and it's genuine, otherwise he would not be saying this. That's why when people sit down, and I've mentioned this a lot, someone will go, all girls are promiscuous. I hear this, all the girls are promiscuous. Yes, because you're an evildoer. You're someone that hangs out the wrong places, you know, someone that spends their time with the wrong type of people. Obviously you're going to have a bad, and they say, for example, someone once told me, we got up to pray, I was still in high school, and he was teaching one of my mates, he was tutoring him. We got up to pray, and I didn't even tell him to get up and pray. But he turned around, he was a Muslim, a follower of Ahl al-Bayt by name. He said to me, I don't pray. I didn't ask you, but he just wanted to let it off his chest, like someone that wants to come out of the closet. I don't really care what you do. You can headbutt the walls, it's your business. What do I have to know about it? How will it change my life? You can do what you want, You don't see heroin junkies coming out and say, listen, these are my track marks. That was my first one. That was on my 16th birthday. They don't go around telling you these things. Whatever's yours, keep it to yourself. It's your business. Why do I have to tell everyone? So this guy goes to me, I don't pray. I didn't even say why not. I just went to pray. For some reason, I wasn't interested. I was at 16, but I wasn't interested. Then he said, because all people that pray lie. And I said, all right, that's my mating call. I'm going to turn back. So then I said, do you eat? And he said, yes, I do. Well, I go, the people that pray eat and they lie, so you shouldn't eat too, because eaters also lie. So I'm going to use your same stupid logic on you. Mind you, this was a guy that was tutoring mathematics. Someone supposed to be someone that understands logical truths and maths, but he doesn't understand life. He's questioning a teenager for praying. All people that pray lie. What a general statement. Imagine like I turned around and I told him, listen, the square root of 25 equals 5. He'd have a heart attack. So positive or negative 5? Where'd you come up with that? Why would you just say 5? And you lose marks for saying that. But they speak with this same method when it comes to this. So when we look at a fasiq, we said someone that commits the greater sins. So when they give you an opinion, I've got to be wary of this. So the general precept for me is if I meet a believer that's good, I have a good opinion of him. If I meet an evildoer, a bad person, I have a bad opinion. If I do not know as a precept, if they're a believer, I anticipate good from them. And if they're not, I anticipate bad, but I never go to the extreme. I'm always on guard. And if I'm in a time of oppression and a time of despotism, I assume bad from everyone. Why? Because they might be forced or compelled to do bad. They might be put at gunpoint to do bad. So in that situation, which is logical, for me to expect bad from them. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to purify our assumptions and our thoughts and to make us of people that have clear intentions, and to cement our belief and our faith and our allegiance to Allah and His Messenger and the immaculate household of His Messenger. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to cure our sick, to have mercy on our deceased. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to help the world overcome this virus that's plagued it for so long, and inshallah take vengeance on everyone that was involved to having it spread, if they did. I'm not saying there's a conspiracy theory, but if someone was involved, may it come back on them, whoever they are. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to hasten the reappearance of our master Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan al-Mehdi. أرواحنا فداه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم كن لوليك صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. والأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات، وإلى أرواح موتانا وموتاكم، وإلى شفاء المرضى. رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.